Hello, and welcome to another Half Pint session. Today we have a very special guest, one of the best of people. I can tell you this because he's a patron supporter of us over at patreon.com/pintswithjack. Mr. Craig Vincent, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it's a privilege to be here. I've been listening to your podcasts, hundreds of hours of them, and it's just quite exciting to finally be part of it.
There is something quite intimidating knowing that somebody has been listening to you for literally hundreds of hours.
Yes, yeah.
It's worrying. But that's okay because you are also equally weird because you reached out to me on Slack and you started talking to me about philosophy in the silver chair. And so this just simply demanded a Half Pint episode. But before we get to that, would you mind just introducing yourself to the viewers? Who are you?
Well, my name is Craig Vincent, but I think you probably want more than that. But it's difficult. It's probably supposed to be an easy question, but it's quite difficult to know just how much to do. So, quick bit of life is what you want, I imagine. Mm-hmm. So to start, I was born at a young age, and I encountered C.S. Lewis as a child with the Narnia stories. And my friend Lawrence, when I was a teenager, got me into all the other stuff he does. And so the things that you've been looking at with the Screwtape Letters, which is my favourite of his adult books, and he got me to read The Pilgrim's Regress. Ooh. And I'm looking forward to you covering that at some point because at 16 I understood about 5% of it. Now I've done a bit of philosophy. I probably understand about 50% of it, but I'm still a long way off.
I'm glad you're looking forward to it. I'm not. That is one that does kind of scare me.
Right. Okay. And I went to university, did a degree in theology. Then I thought I'd probably better get a job. I tried accountancy. I was rubbish. It was a disaster. Then I went and did a Christian ethics master's degree. And then I did a year's teacher training. And for the last 30 years, I've been teaching 11 to 18-year-olds religious studies, philosophy, ethics. So I do A-level philosophy. So that's for your American viewers. That's if you're 17, 18, about to go to university, that age. And philosophy, religion, and ethics to the 11 to 16s.
Wow. You're a brave man. Brave man.
Well, there are much worse ways to earn a living, and
True,
in my journey,
you could be a gnome in Underworld for a start.
Well, yes, they had a really miserable time. So yeah, but as did, to be fair, most people in the silver chair most of the time. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
But you have a particular affection for the silver chair. We're not going to rehash the standard arguments as to which is Lewis's best book, but why do you hold that one in such high esteem?
If I'm allowed to talk about Star Wars on the C.S. Lewis podcast,
absolutely,
yeah, I have got one of my Star Wars ties on for the occasion, and when I was young, first, what I think of as the first Star Wars, now it would be called Episode 4, but Luke Skywalker, he blows up the Death Star, it's all fantastic, and then they get medals from Princess Leia. Surely
except
the best
Chewie.
one.
Chewie doesn't get a medal.
Oh, it is an ethical outrage. But I think Peter Singer would call it speciesism. Anyway, and that was clearly the best. And I remember reading that the critics thought that the next one, The Empire Strikes Back, was the best. No, it's miserable. Everything bad happens in it. Yeah. And but now, as an old man, I absolutely agree with them. And something like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is like that first Star Wars. They defeat the White Witch. They get crowned kings and queens in Narnia. They reign happily, live forever. It's not like that in the Silver Chair. It's miserable for the first 3 quarters of the book. and I relate to that. So, and Empire Strikes Back, what do we see? We see Luke this time has been trained by the wise Yoda, and his friends are being tortured by the evil Darth Vader. Yoda says, "Don't go. You're not going to be able to cope with him." He goes off. He fights him anyway, and out comes Darth Vader with his lightsaber, and he engages in a battle with him, and Darth cuts off, Luke's hand, and he's there saying, "Oh no!" And the physical torment is added to by mental torment, as Darth then says, "Join me, and together we'll rule the universe as father and son." Luke's thinking, this guy, evil guy who's just cut my hand off, is my dad, and he falls off into the abyss. No, he cries. Now, I'm going to put the glove back on now to make the point more forcefully. That is my real life. Now, I am aware that of your hundreds of hours of podcasts, that is the stupidest thing that's ever been said.
I was going to say most awesome, but sure, carry on.
But I'm not literally saying that my dad is Darth Vader. He is, a man of great virtue, and it's a privilege to be his son. What I mean is, I've not listened to wise advice and made wrong decisions. I've faced challenges like learning New Testament Greek at university, or rather not learning it, that were just too big for me. You have faced giant challenges in life. In the Silver Chair, they face giant challenges, literally giants. When you face a giant, the giant's going to win, and they do the only sensible thing, which is run away. So and they make mistakes, and screw tape letters, as I said, is my favourite one. The law of undulation, which you've talked about before, there are ups and downs in life. You can't be expecting ups all the time. And I just feel like the Silver Chair has the right atmosphere that I can relate to in a more kind of realistic way. I know it's got witches and stuff like that in it, but I'm feeling it.
That's the most British response ever. And the more I think about it, yes, The Silver Chair is a very British book. Everything is terrible. You're walking, you're cold, you're wet, you're miserable. There's something quite deep in the British psyche that I do think that taps into. But of course, the pinnacle, the apex of the book is the argument that takes place in the underworld, where Puddleglum gives a defense for Aslan and Narnia. Where do we find this philosophy that you've been talking about?
Okay, so it starts off in Plato. 2,500 years ago, Plato has his allegory of the cave, and I've drawn a little picture of it for you. So this is partly I was really impressed with this. And I did think I am wasted as a philosophy teacher. I should be doing art instead. But Plato imagines that these people have been born in a cave, trapped in a cave. They've been tied up so they can only look towards the shadows on the wall. We know there's a real world outside with a real sun and real tree, but they've only ever seen the shadows. Well, they would believe that those shadows are the real thing. And Lewis talks about us living in these shadow lands. The things that we see and touch around us are the real thing, but they're not. The real things, the really important things, are the things you can't see and touch. And I think getting people to understand that has got harder in every generation, because I don't know, I'm going to blame capitalism. That the students, they spend their time on TikTok videos or watching these influencers or whatever. And what's it about? It's about how you can do your makeup better, or how you can get a six-pack. Because there's somebody who can sell you makeup. There's not somebody who's trying to sell you how to be a kinder person, or how to improve your spirit rather than your appearance. And so we kind of think that the stuff we can see and touch is, I've got my wedding ring on. That's something I can see and touch. So what if it's a bit of metal? What it symbolizes, the things that I can't see and touch. I think you and Andrew have both talked about having married up.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, it's definitely true in my case. So my
It's also true in Matt's as well. I just want to make that really clear if anyone's in any doubt.
okay. So and I see it as our personal achievements that you can really be proud of that because I feel like when I was 22, I tricked Elaine into marrying me, and I've managed to keep the wool pulled over her eyes ever since. Um, and it symbolises the commitment, the love, the faithfulness, the everything else, and those things you can't see are more important than the things that you can. The stuff that's outside the cave, rather than stuff that you can see inside. And one of the things outside the cave, of course, is God, or in the silver chair is Narnia and Aslan. And basically, the witch, the Queen of Underland, goes through quite a long conversation with them to say, where is this Narnia? I can't see it. Who is this? Where's Aslan? No. And she ends up doing Feuerbach and Freud, make a bit of Karl Marx in her arguments to where their ideas of this made-up Aslan, God, has come from. So we can get into that in a bit more detail if you want, but that's basically the structure of Plato's cave. Mm-hmm. My students are always very keen if I can recommend a film rather than reading a philosophy book, they'll go with that. So my initial reaction is The Matrix because I'm a sci-fi fan and I like, it's got spaceships in it. And but Elaine, sorry, I'm just laughing at myself. Elaine has a totally different attitude to films than I do, and she'll recommend, so you must watch such and such a film. Oh, okay, but I've learned now to ask, what's the plot? Well, this couple fall in love, and then her husband dies in some terrible accident, and then the child dies of a terrible disease. Oh, I wept all the way through it. I got through a whole box of tissues. It was fantastic. It's like, no thanks. So now just ask, has it got a spaceship in it? So if you want Plato's cave with spaceships, then you watch The Matrix. Mm-hmm. If you're not a spaceships person, even better is The Truman Show. Have you seen The Truman Show?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, it's funny. The two movies that you've mentioned, The Matrix and The Truman Show, I think those are the last two movies I showed Marie in 2025 because I'm a little older than she is. I'm constantly trying to sort of fill in all of the gaps because her mother kept her suitably isolated from a lot of terrible movies, but unfortunately she missed out on some amazing ones too.
Right, yeah, great. And I don't want to spoil the plot for anyone, but there's one true man in The Truman Show, and all the things that he sees around him turn out not to be really real and quite disturbing. And we're on his side as he tries to escape. Anyway, so that's another way into the whole Plato's cave stuff.
Yeah, and the Green Witch, she takes their attempts to explain Narnia and Aslan after she's played dumb as to, what's this sun thing that you keep talking about? Well, I say, it's sort of like the lamp, but it's bigger. And then she starts probing them, asking them more difficult questions about how this sun stays up in the sky, and aren't they just taking this lamp and projecting it forward? This is the way that she chiefly tries to argue against what she declares is effectively their delusion.
Yes, exactly. And that comes, first of all, from a German philosopher, Ludwig Feuerbach. I remember I mentioned my wife. I did pick up a couple of children on the way. And one of my fondest memories is reading the Narnia stories to them when they were small. And my wife was in the doorway as I'm saying to, still remember saying to Rebecca as we got to this part of it, "Oh, Becca, this is the German philosopher Ludwig Feuerbach, and then his ideas are taken up of wish fulfillment and sort of by Sigmund Freud." And Elaine's like, "You're trying to read them a story?" Anyway, but although 99% of the time when we disagree, Elaine's right and I'm wrong, I think I've been proved right with this one occasion because Rebecca went on to Cambridge and did a theology degree, and my son's at the moment at Durham doing theology and philosophy. So I think these little bits, did affect them. Anyway, so Feuerbach says exactly as you've said. you've got what's called projectionism. You've got this little idea of a lamp in the room. If you've imagined a bigger and better lamp, the sun, you've got people. I can see your handsome face there, but it's not completely perfect. You're a powerful and intelligent man who managed to fix all my IT problems before we started, but you're not omniscient. So I've imagined, wouldn't it be better to have somebody who knew everything and had all power and was all? So I've taken these human qualities, and Feuerbach says, if I get the quote right, what man wishes to be, he makes his God. So you imagine these things, and you project it there, and it's a wish fulfillment, and then you've invented God and then start worshipping him. It's not the best argument against God, because for one thing, it lacks any evidence, and we quite like evidence with arguments. It could be like that, but where's the evidence for that? Got quite a bit of evidence against it. So there's an awful lot of people, for example, for who Lewis being one, dreaded the idea of there being a God, really did not want to believe in it, in him. And you remember him being called the most reluctant convert. He just absolutely wanted to avoid it, but just felt convinced by the evidence that he had to believe it. It wasn't a wish fulfillment at all. When I've been watching quite a lot of the new atheists in debates and things on YouTube, and Christopher Hitchens, the late Christopher Hitchens, was very firm about, we can't be believing in some God who's going to tell us what to do. I don't want somebody telling me how to live. I want to be my own person. It's not a wish fulfillment for people like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he really reminds me of Lewis when he says things like that. And Lewis would later write, people talked about their pursuit of God. For me, it'd be like, the pursuit of the mouse's pursuit of the cat.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And in the end, he gets caught and thinks, there's no avoiding it. I am going to have to admit God is there. And then Freud, feel free to do Freud yourself, because if I do Freud, I'm going to just get annoyed.
But go for
it. Freud then takes that up and then adds a whole load of several other, even more made up nonsense as his arguments for why we've come up with this idea of God, based on whether the Oedipus complex and whether the sexual weirdness and the primal horde theory and each book, if you read Future of an Illusion or Totem and Taboo, each time it just comes up with a totally different theory based on nothing. I'm all in favour of the way psychology works today. Psychology works today by they expect you to study 1,000 pairs of twins. I'm a twin myself. 1,000 pairs of twins, and then you ask these twins, and then and you come up with these results, and you do this. There's no evidence at all in anything that Freud says. It just makes it all up. And this, little hands is what he bases the whole Oedipus thing on. One person who says, who he's met once. Anyway, right. So that's the end of Freud. I'm going to get annoyed. So
okay.
Right.
Well. Okay. So this is how the witch argues. Now, as we were talking before we hit record, you said that there are actually some other ways that she could have tried to attack this belief in Narnia. And
so I think there are lots of bad arguments against God, but there is one really good one, which Christians have spent 2,000 years trying to come up with responses to, and that's the problem of evil and suffering. So what she could have said, and if I was her, I'd have tried with this one, I'd have said, this Aslan that we can't see, well, look at the mess that's going on in the, I've got this poor prince captive, I've killed his mum, there's a whole load of bad stuff going on, and where's Aslan? There's a really good God would not allow these bad things to happen. That would be a much better argument, I think, that she could have said. Mm-hmm. She doesn't say that, and possibly because I think there are some really good answers that Puddleglum and Eustace and Jill could make from their experience in the book. So I can quickly run through some of those if you want.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, so we do in a GCSE in religious studies. I do this in one lesson, and I say, right, you can have as many responses to the problem of evil as you want. When they get to about 6 or 7, they say, okay, we've had enough. But which is good, because if they went to more than 10, I'd really be struggling. But there are lots of them. So free will, which is one that's very commonly talked about. And Jill says in the book, she knows a lot of the stuff that's gone wrong is her fault.
Also forgetting of the signs, not following the signs.
Yeah. Yes.
Eustace himself doesn't listen to her when she first turns up. Says, shh, shh, shh. Well, I'm trying to pay attention. Well, the very means of what could have made their quest so much easier was just right there.
Yeah. So we can shake our fists at God and say, why is this happening? But actually, a lot of it's our fault. A lot of it's other people's free will and their fault. So a while ago, a couple of unkind gentlemen on drugs tried to steal my car. They were, as I was trying to get into it, so they were trying to get my car keys and to drive off with it. So I bravely made a run for it, and they ran after me, but I was faster than they were, so I was okay. But I'm not going to blame God for this. That's the choices of those people that they were making. Anyway, so that's free will. One that's seldom talked about, but one of the reasons I really like Screwtape Letters is it gives us some sort of insight into the workings of the evil forces in the universe. Yes, God is omnipotent, and eventually he will win, but we're not in heaven yet. We're in the world where there are bad forces at work. So soul-making theodicy, Irenaeus, or the modern version of it, Kelly Clarkson's song, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So Eustace, in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, because I'm going to see if you can do the first line of the book, which is about Eustace's name.
There once was a boy named Eustace Clarence Scrubb, and he almost deserved it.
Word, perfect, excellent. Hey.
I get to keep my podcast.
And he did deserve it. It was a horrible, horrible person. But by the start of the Silver Chair, he's the sort of person who can be trusted to lead a quest, and he's not one of the bullies anymore. He's the person who stands up to the bullies and helps Jill, who's being bullied at school. He's a totally different person because of the challenges and difficulties he's gone through. You can't develop the virtue of courage if there's nothing to be afraid of. You can't develop patience or compassion if there's not kind of bad things in the world. So you could do that.
And that is definitely one of Lewis's favorite arguments, particularly earlier in his life. The idea of why do bad things happen? Well, it's the thing that forces us and shapes us. You can't have courage if there's no such thing as danger.
Yeah.
I do think he backs away from that as he gets later in life and experiences more than his adequate share of suffering to be able to say, well, this might still be true, but this can't be the only thing, surely.
Yeah. Yes. I'm going to slightly push back on that.
Okay.
If I may.
Go for it.
Because I think he had more than his adequate share of suffering in his early life as well. His mum dies when he's 9. So that's soul making. The one that my students think is the worst possible answer, but is my second best one, is I don't know. And they think that's the worst answer because, if you give that answer in your geography or your history lesson, whatever, you get 0 for that. Mm-hmm. But, if I ask you, why do people come on your show? There's not going to be one simple answer to that. Probably as many answers as there are people. Mm-hmm. And you can't actually tell that. If we can't even work out a simple thing like that with people, how am I supposed to understand the eternity of, how the universe works and how God might see it in the future? I'm stuck in time. maybe from the perspective of heaven, I'm going to look back and see, oh, that starts to make sense now, but I can't be expected to make sense of everything here now as a human person. It's like asking an ant, can you work out the value of pi or something? It's just we're not capable of that. No, I don't know is the right answer. So that's my second favourite. Go on.
I was just going to say, actually, I think my favorite is the combination of the soul-making theodicy and I don't know. Whenever the problem of evil comes up, I say we can very often see bad things that have happened to us and good that came out of it. So Eustace is a very good example. The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, that entire book, a lot of bad stuff happens to Eustace, but look at what happened, what came out of it. And the point is then when he is in the silver chair, there's bad stuff happening, and he might not be able to explain why it's happening. Even he might be able to point to some instrumental causes, like giants that want to eat us and witches that want to take over Narnia. But he might not be able to fully explain it. But if he can look back on his life in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader and say, I can see that there was a reason for this, then that means that I can't just simply say that because I can't see a reason for this particular piece of suffering doesn't mean that there isn't a reason. And it's the onus is then on the person that wants to say, nope, this is suffering and it's absolutely meaningless with no redemption. The onus is on that person to justify that statement, not me.
Yes. And I think you're right. We've got to kind of add these things together. If each of those answers might deal with, 10% of it, and maybe we get up to about 50%, well, maybe we can trust God for the rest. But and my favourite, I've saved the best to last, is that it's a philosophical question, but it doesn't have a philosophical answer. So words won't solve the problem of evil and suffering, only action will.
Yeah.
So you've got poor William is in this silver chair, he's trapped underground, and you could have our heroes sitting around saying, oh, I wonder why this is happening, and what's the no, they don't. They get off their bums and they get along there and try and help him. So I could sit and think, okay, why are there starving people in the world? But if that's where I end and ideally I would go over and do something practical to help them. But at the very least, I could give some money to the charity that's helping them, or my neighbour's lonely because her husband's died. Well, I can make her not so lonely by going to see her. So I think the answer to the problem of evil and suffering can be a practical thing rather than a philosophical thing, and that's what they're doing in this quest.
The response that it elicits, it's like if I get hit by a car, I will not be very appreciative if a medic runs over to me and then starts explaining which of my bones I've broken and why my pain receptors are currently going crazy. No. I need a shot of morphine now, please, and then set the bone and then go and take me to a hospital where I can get fixed up. That's actually the response I really care about, not necessarily on the technicalities of what does this all mean.
Yeah, great. Now, I know those are all kind of valuable answers to the question that she doesn't ask. So better do a bit of responses to the whole wish fulfillment projectionism argument that she does do. I think Lewis is getting that from Descartes. So he lectured in philosophy before being a English literature lecturer. He knew his stuff, and I'm sure he read it in the original language and that sort of thing, which I can't do. But we've got the ontological argument and we've got the trademark argument. Traditionally, people will say it's the ontological argument because, to be fair, in one of Lewis's letters, he says that this conversation between the witch and the children is him putting the ontological argument into a form suitable for children.
Mm-hmm.
So I can deal with that a bit, but I actually think it's the trademark argument which comes a little bit earlier in the book.
Well, let's start with the ontological argument, because it is one of the wildest arguments. I remember when I first started getting into apologetics, and that inevitably leads to philosophy, and I first came across the ontological argument. I read it, I put the book down, I went, Wait, what? So, would you mind explaining what that is?
Okay, so Anselm and Descartes do it, and I don't know if is that readable to you.
Yep.
Yeah,
God is the greatest imaginable being.
great. So he says, and that's a definition that your atheists will agree to. You don't have to believe in God to agree with that. I can have a definition of a unicorn as a horse with one horn in its head, fine. And then the second bit,
it is greater to exist in reality as well as the mind than to just exist in the mind.
Okay, now when you had your pint of beer, was it beer? Yeah.
It was indeed.
Okay, right. And I did the cheers with my empty glass because if this was at home rather than at school, I would be able to have my VAT 69
beautiful
whiskey that you have told me that C.S. Lewis and there I even got my picture just to prove you that's me with my bottle of VAT 69. We picked up I've never seen it on sale in England, but we got it in Athens when my son wanted to go and see where Plato and Aristotle were originally from and sort of thing. So we went to Athens and they were selling it there. Anyway,
beautiful.
So much better. I can imagine the whiskey, but it'd be much better if I actually had some as well.
Mm-hmm.
Most people agree with that. Well, hold on, I've just proved God now, because if I've said God is the greatest possible being, and it's greater to exist in reality, then God must exist in reality. Okay.
Yeah.
Descartes' version, similar. God has all. I'm not bothered with it. Well, I'll hold up the card. Okay. God has all perfections. Existence is a perfection, and if God has all perfections, then he has existence. Now, what's nice about that is really logical. It makes sense. What's not nice about it is it doesn't convince anyone.
Yeah, even as a theist, I believe in God, but I don't know if I don't know. I don't think that convinces me, and I can't even quite explain why.
Yeah, there are technical difficulties with it, whether existence is a predicate or not, which I think it is. But anyway, and one of the things you can do is not agree with the first premise. So don't agree with that definition of God. If you have your definition of God is a
extremely powerful,
or just have God is wish fulfillment, projectionism in the wild imaginings of stupid people.
Mm-hmm.
That's your starting point. You're not going to conclude that it exists. So that's one way you can argue with it. Anyway, so that's ontological argument. Is that really in the silver chair? I don't think it is. I think the general principle of going from an idea, so it goes from a definition of an idea to reality, that is there. Because Puddleglum's argument is that I've got this idea of, well, he starts off with religious experience. He says, well, no, there is a Narnia because I happen to have lived there all my life. There's people who say, I've had my prayers answered, I've seen miracles, I've felt guided, there's billions of people who say that. But then he also has, from the nature of the idea, that it is real. So we've got the idea that he says that this made-up world of Narnia and is so much more important, seems so much more real than the stuff I see around me, than this cave that you've got me trapped in. Back to my wedding ring or my appearance. This is when my wife married me. I used to. You probably weren't as foolish as me in the 1980s, David. You're younger than me for a start. When I was a teenager in the 80s, it was trendy to have a long fringe. I had a fringe that got to my chin.
Oh my goodness!
Did have the disadvantage.
Was it a centre parting as well?
No, just this that. So I couldn't see where I was going. So just have to keep doing this as you walk along. Total moron. Because obviously, a trendy hairstyle is more important than sight.
Yeah.
But if that's what she thinks is important about me, she's in a bit of trouble now because it's not there anymore. Mm-hmm. None of it is. But no, the things that are really important are the the person inside. We do metaphysics of mind as well in philosophy. You don't have to be religious to believing in a spirit or a soul, but you can believe in a continuity of consciousness. You can believe in a mind. You can believe in that sort of stuff. And that's what continues. That's what's more important. That's the bit that's not changing. That's the bit that we can't see. And Puddleglum says, all this stuff that you say is just we've made up, is so much more real, so much more important than things we can see around us. And in that sense, I think it is an ontological argument. It's going from the ideas in our head to saying, well, that is making it real. Anyway, that's the best I can do. I'm sorry for the ontological argument, but I really think he's going more for the trademark argument. So if you see that on a pair of trainers,
just do it.
Yeah, and it tells you who made those trainers.
Mm-hmm. Nike.
Nike.
Or Nike.
Yes, I'm learning to say Nike the American way rather than Nike the British way. And in the trademark argument, what Descartes says is he says that something that is in your mind, this idea of God that you've got, is God's trademark that he's put on you. Everybody has been born with this idea of this all-powerful, omnipotent being. We're made in God's image, and we've been given that by God. Why is it from God and not from wish fulfillment or the sort of Freud-Feuerbach stuff? He has some arguments, not perfect ones, but kind of helpful-ish, which is about where certain things come from. So you were interrupted earlier, David, by one of your three charming children. Why you want 3 children under 5? And a job, and I don't know how you manage
Life is not challenging enough. Bring it on.
When child number 3 was coming along, you weren't at the birth thinking, I wonder what it's going to be this time. Will it be a kitten or a puppy?
Although that is what I always say when people say, what do you think it's going to be? I say, people are saying boy or girl, but I'm thinking puppy or kitten.
Yes, yeah. But it never is. Disappointing. It's always yet another human being that comes out, because things, Descartes and going back to Aristotle, says things of to create an effect, the cause has to have enough reality to create that effect, and has to be a certain type of cause. And Descartes says that the certain type of cause for that idea of God in my mind can't be from me, a limited person. This idea of an infinite, eternal, unlimited God has come from an unlimited, eternal mind as that source of that unlimited, eternal God. Another example might be, you're not going to light a candle with an ice cube. You're going to light a candle with a match. It needs to have an actual flame to make that other flame.
Yeah.
God's mind has kind of connected with our mind to put his kind of ideas of eternity and infinity and so on into it. That's kind of how he's arguing for it.
I suppose you could also go in sort of a negative way, much like Lewis's argument in the chapter on hope in mere Christianity, that if ducklings want to swim, well, there's such a thing as water. I want to eat, there's such a thing as food. But if I find something within myself that nothing in this world can satisfy, that means I was made for another world. So yes. you could go a sort of apophatic way and look at what it can't be, and you're left with something that looks an awful lot like God.
Yes, yeah, and all of these arguments for God's existence, we haven't done the much better ones. Fine-tuning of the universe, or origin of morality, or design argument, or all that other stuff. And I would suggest that just like evil and suffering isn't a proof against God, you're weighing up evidence. There aren't any proofs for God. I would say you put together the different arguments and so you weigh it up and say, actually, that's leading me towards this. But anyway, I do think the trademark argument's got something going for it. but it's not, and the ontological argument, but there is a long way from being the best one. But it's, they're appropriate responses to the worse arguments of Feuerbach and Freud.
And also, when it comes to arguments for the existence of God, they are also rather personal. I agree with you. I think the stronger, the more logically airtight arguments for the existence of God, something like Aquinas' argument from motion, I think that is, you can tie that up much more tightly. However, for me personally, when I hear the argument from desire and the argument from morality, that does something inside me that I find much more convincing at a more visceral level, although it is harder to nail all of those down in simple premises and conclusions.
Yeah, and I think we're a combination, aren't we, of rational beings and emotional beings and spiritual beings, and maybe something like that appeals to the rational, logical bit of us. Maybe seeing the change in people's lives that faith has made to them is going to make more of a kind of personal effect. And
but you never know when you might find yourself in a subterranean dungeon with a green witch who's playing music and trying to drug you. So
yes,
it's always good to have lots of tools available.
Yeah. Let's hope Puddleglum is with us in such circumstances. Get a bit of help from our friends.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for doing this, walking through the philosophy of the silver chair and arguments that the witch might have used. Is there anything you want to say to wrap all of this up and put a bow on it?
You can chuck in Pascal's wager, but I don't want to. And I'd like to just put a bow on it with the words of Puddleglum himself, because I think it just says it so well. So he says, suppose we have only dreamed or made up all those things, trees and grass and sun, moon and stars and Aslan himself. Suppose we have. Then all I can say is, in that case, the made-up things seem a good deal more important than the real ones. Suppose this black pit of a kingdom of yours is the only world. Well, it strikes me as a pretty poor one. And that's a funny thing when you come to think of it. We're just babies making up a game, if you're right. But 4 babies playing a game can make a play world which licks your real world hollow. That's why I'm going to stand by the play world. I'm on Aslan's side. Even if there isn't any Aslan to lead it, I'm going to live as like a Narnian as I can, even if there isn't any Narnia.
What a way to end. Craig, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And viewers, please join us again next time when we continue going further up and further in. Cheers.